Obviously, thank you for coming, all of you guys. Just like this friend here said, ironSource is very, very well known for our mobile SDK business and network. But about 4 years ago, we went into the OEM carrier kind of world and space, and this is what we were here to talk about. The topic of this presentation is basically the missing element and how ironSource can kind of solve the puzzle around OEM and carrier distribution. I'm happy to see partners and colleagues here also that came to kind of see what we're doing. So I'm very excited, and hopefully, you get to learn something here today. And it stopped working. All right. So a little bit about myself, except for the unusual name. I'm leading strategic partnerships here in San Francisco for our OEM and carrier product called Aura. I've been with ironSource for almost 5 years. I started on our desktop legacy business. When we started working on our OEM and carrier product, I changed my position and moved to work for that division of ironSource, which has been grown in the last kind of 4 years. The last 2 years, we actually grew 10x. So it's a super strong business for ironSource in the last 2 years. A funny fact about my name, Dor. Every time I introduce myself to a new partner, I say my name, the first comment is like, "Excuse me." I also have one of my employees just came back from Christmas, and she said, "Yeah, I spent my time with my family. That was like amazing." And even my brother asked me, "How is everything going with my boss window?" And she had to say, "No, it's actually a door." So in Hebrew, my name means generation. It's from the Bible. But yeah, when I relocated to the US about 3 years ago, it started becoming a challenge. My team here I have two teams, the sales team and the account management team for this division under my hat and my responsibilities. And you're probably interfaced with them throughout the conference. So in today's session, we're going to talk about the Holy Grail, the missing element, how app marketers can win with Aura, and we're going to leave time at the end for Q&A. And so please, if you have any questions, save them for the end. So our OEMs and carriers actually the Holy Grail. We're going to try and learn a bit more about that. But first off, I want to start by asking you to think about the first time you got a new smartphone. There's something magical about this moment. You get a new phone, you've been anticipating for it. It finally got delivered. You have the package, you have the box, you open it. You feel excited, you feel thankful. Some people say, they even feel in love, as crazy as that sounds. And we're gonna come back to this moment later on, but I want you to remember this. So what's the first thing that comes to mind when you think about OEM and carrier app distribution? Preloads. And this emoji is here for a reason. Let's talk more about the potential of preloads. So what is the real potential of preloads? So obviously they bypass one of the biggest challenges that we all have as app marketers. They bypass the app discovery challenge. Today, discovery is fragmented. You have to invest, a lot of your budget and resources in running user acquisition campaigns across multiple channels in order to get your app discovered. The stores are saturated. Each store has more than 2 million apps in it. It's a super frustrating challenge for us as marketers. The other thing that preload can help us solve is how do we get to the user? And we want to get to the user first. Why? The reason we want to get to the user first is because users today have a lot of options for the same service and the same app, right? Whether it's a streaming app, a rideshare app, a social network, it could be a mobile banking app. There are many services that are competing with each other. And for us as marketers to try and get to get the user, to win the user to use our products, we have to be there first. Preload obviously also provide massive global scale through the OEMs and the carriers, and they're more affordable typically if you look at the price that you're paying per the install. And of course, they're safe and fraud-free. This is something that is a big challenge for the industry today. And I'm sure you've all been in many fraud sessions, and preloads are safe. And you can put the app directly on the device, and these are the benefits that you get from all of this. Thanks to our integrations with the OEMs and the carriers, we're also able to see very unique data. And this slide here is basically shows how important it is to get to the user first. So we actually looked at over 2 million devices, and we saw that the majority of app installs or downloads actually happen on the first day of device activation. So I'm sure it's not surprising for you, right? We all got a new phone, we started downloading apps, but this is why it's crucial to be there in that special moment, in that moment when the users are downloading and selecting the apps that they need on their new devices. So if all of this is true, and carriers and OEMs should have been the holy grail for app distribution. So why aren't they making a bigger piece of your marketing budgets? There are two reasons for it, at least in our kind of analysis. It's the high barriers to entry and the new standards. Let's further dive into these two items. So with respect to high barriers to entry, I don't know how many of you actually tried engaging with an OEM or a carrier directly, but these are massive companies, they're strong companies, they're powerful, and because of it, there are long sales cycles. You need to have a certain upfront commitment in order to get things going. The legal agreement, if you've ever been through this challenge, there's not a lot of negotiations around legal. The security reviews for the company and for the app or the content that you want to promote there are very strict. And of course, these are highly matrixed organizations. And a funny story that we have here is that one of our latest partners for our product is T-Mobile. And we love T-Mobile. It's definitely a great partnership for us. But it took us almost 2 years to get that partner to work with us. And in these 2 years, they went through at least 3 reorgs. This is insane, right? But we also sometimes kind of feel they're more comfortable in a reorg state than not. Yeah. So we feel like these are the barriers to entry, and this is why a lot of app marketers are not going towards this route. But also, performance is basically the new standard. And the OEMs and carriers are not built to performance marketing. They don't have deep targeting capabilities. There are no creatives. The optimizations are not real time, right? You don't pay for the engagement, and they don't integrate with MMPs. We all want to use our mobile measurement platforms, right? And that's how we look at all of our campaigns. We want an apple-to-apple comparison, and you can't get all of these. But that's not all. It's not only that they don't support the performance kind of mindset, they also don't really understand it. And a funny story about it is when we first started working on our product, we also built something for desktop. And in one of our kind of endeavors with an OEM for desktop, he was like, hey, we need more advertisers, we need more demand. Why don't you start bringing us a few software partners that we can start working with? And we actually brought a very, very popular password managing app. They're so popular that they actually were able to afford a Super Bowl ad this year. And so we bring the product to the OEMs. They look at it, they say, wow, this is amazing. We're going to put it on all of our devices. But in the compliance process and the QA process, we basically saw that there are a few calls to the CPU, and could you please go back to the developer and ask them to kind of change that? This is really something small. So we went back to the developer and we're like, hey, it all looks good. They're interested as well. And we just need to change these tiny few things in the software, and then we're good to go. Of course, thank you for the feedback. We'll come back with feedback. The day after, we get an email back, which is like, guys, the request that you guys put in is changing our whole app. We haven't even spent $1 there. Like, why would we do it? We don't even know if it's going to perform for us or not, right? And then going back to the OEM, they're like, well, they want to work with us, no? So this is the challenge from their perspective. It's not only the fact that the technology is not 100% there. It's also about the fact that they don't understand the mindset of us as marketers, right? And how we try to pay for what we see as good traffic, as good engagement. We don't necessarily want to get into huge upfront commitments. Cool. So because of all of these barriers, app marketers basically turn their budgets and focus to other channels. And we all know these channels. And I'm sure this is part of your, or the biggest part of your marketing budgets and mix. So how do we solve it, right? This is the question. And after a lot of conversations with different app developers and obviously the OEMs and the carriers, we decided to focus on the out-of-box experience. Why the out-of-box experience? Because of its momentum. Okay, let's try to understand why there's momentum for the out-of-box experience. So, unboxing is the simple action of taking something out of the box. But it's a global phenomenon, okay? There's more than 1.6 million videos on YouTube of people just filming themselves unboxing a product. And the popular channels grab more than 2.4 billion views. And why? Because it connects us to our inner child. There's an emotional effect here that basically connects us to our inner child and the first time we received a gift. Okay? If you remember the beginning of the presentation, we were talking about the moment that you just got the new phone. This is where it connects, guys. The second thing is that the out-of-box experience actually happens in the post-sale phase. And therefore, users don't see offers that are presented to them as cold-hearted sales pitch. They're more receptive to try these new apps and services. And lastly, they're already going through a very engaging experience with the device. They have to set it up. This is the Android setup flow, right? You turn on your device, you have to select your Wi-Fi, you have to enter your user and password, and you go through the backup process or the import process from your old device. You're already setting it up, you're highly engaged, and this is why the out-of-box experience has the momentum. So we all agree right now that UBI, which is the short for out-of-box experience, is the perfect setting to promote apps and services to the user. There's that momentum that pushes it to be that perfect moment, right? So if there was only one way or two ways or three ways to connect it with performance marketing, which is the challenge. And this is where ironSource comes into the picture with our out-of-box experience. And what you see here is basically our out-of-box experience product on the Sprint partner. And as you can see, this experience is something that the user gets when he first unboxes his device. It's an app recommendation flow that allows performance marketers to leverage that momentum. As you can see, the first screen is a welcome screen. The following screen is a screen that prompts the user to provide his age and gender information. This is an opt-in experience. They don't have to do anything. But about 80% of users actually provide their age and gender because they want to get good and relevant offers for their new device. The following screens will be populated at runtime based on our backend, based on the campaigns that we have in the system, and we're going to talk about it as well. Once the users finish this flow, all of the apps that they selected will be downloaded to their new phone. You can also see on the fourth screen that we introduced a new ad unit that we call the full screen offer. And this is basically where you can try new creatives and test creatives. There could be promo codes, and we definitely see that this is material when it comes to performance advertising. And we have partners that already offer users, all users that download the app from the store, a 30-day free trial, right? I'm sure you all know different streaming apps that offer free trial in order for you to register. Most users don't even know it, And just by putting the words out there that you get something back, they're very receptive to trying the service and registering. Let's have another look at it. This is how it looks on our T-Mobile partner. Okay, so it's a very similar experience tailored to the carrier needs in this case. The carriers also promote their own and operated apps through this process, okay? And what we're showing here is just a side of it that's relevant for you guys, for the performance marketers. And I also want to mention there are similar solutions in the space. They do similar things. There are companies like Pinsight and Digital Turbine that provide similar solutions on other supply. So let's see how Aura's out-of-box experience actually holds up to the new standard. So to start, the out-of-box experience is campaign-based. Okay, the discovery engine is in real time, and it has a waterfall, just like any other network that you're running on. Secondly, it's integrated with all the MMPs, right? AppsFlyer, Adjust, Singular, all of these guys. You just give us a tracking link, and your campaign is there. You can measure everything through the attribution companies. You can target by age, gender, device model, the geo, the location, the carrier, the operating system version, and many other options. Reminding you that the other solution or the previous solution that was available is by device model and the market. If I go to a carrier right now or an OEM, this is what they offer you. You can optimize towards a KPI goal according to in-app events, right? Post-install events. Could be ROAS, could be cost per purchase. The channel fully supports that. And we introduced the full screen offer, which is a new ad placement, and you can also A/B test creatives. Of course, we support, because of our integration with the MMPs, all kinds of different models. So instead of just paying for the preload, you can also pay for the install, which is the first app open, basically. You can also have budget caps, which is obviously very important. And there shouldn't be a big upfront commitment. If this is not working for you guys, your money should go elsewhere. We also built an advertiser dashboard that gives you all of these insights into the OEM and carrier space, so you can see, in which device models you're performing, who are your target audience, what are they yielding in returns, and there are a lot of different ways to split the data there. And last, but definitely one of the more important ones, is that the out-of-box experience happens after the user had the chance to import the apps from his old phone and from the cloud backup. And our safety mechanism here is that even if we have a campaign in the system for an app, but the user already has it on his device, we're not going to feature it to that users. So the risk of buying existing users is being reduced significantly. I'm going to repeat it. So if I had Netflix on my previous device and I just imported to my new device, and let's say that we as a platform has a campaign for Netflix, we're not going to feature Netflix to this user because he already has it on his device, okay? This was one of the bigger challenges when you work directly with an OEM or a carrier on a preload deal, right? You pay for all of the traffic in advance, regardless of whether you're buying existing users or not. In addition to all of these great features, the out-of-box experience is actually tailor-made to each user. So the out-of-box experience, the ad units change based on the user inputs. Okay, so on the left side here, you can see how the out-of-box experience would look for a female in a certain age group. And on the right side, you would see the experience that males would get. Why? Because our data and optimization mechanisms around the flow itself show that these two different genders interact differently with the out-of-box experience. And our purpose here is not only to provide the best apps and content to the user, is to also to maximize their engagement with our platform. And again, going back to our recommendation engine, if in the past we were looking only at geo and device model, look at how many things we see today before we recommend apps to the user. Obviously, most of these stuff are data and inputs that we get from the user, but we can now also look at lookalikes, right? What other users did, how they engage with apps that were recommended to them. We can also learn a lot today from the screen resolution, from the connection type, right? Whether this user is on a Wi-Fi or whether he's using a 3G, 4G, 5G, right? User with a 5G is definitely different in value than a user that's still using a 3G technology and so forth. So our app recommendation is super smart, and it leverages information that the user entered as well as information of lookalikes and other things that we can grab around the device. I'm also happy to share that this technology is now available globally, so it's definitely not focused on the US markets. And this is a partial list of our partners and the bigger names that we work with around the globe. And so you can see that today, T-Mobile and Metro and Sprint and Boost and Orange and Samsung and Huawei and 3UK, which is part of the Hutchinson Group, they all utilize our technology in order to better serve and monetize their users. And today we see close to 1 million devices a day across the globe being activated with our solution on them. So the scale is definitely there. Now let's see a few examples of how different app marketers can win with Aura's out-of-the-box solution. All right, so to start, thanks to our different targeting features that we just presented, we can see that certain apps that weren't able to enjoy OEM and carrier distribution in the past can actually really benefit from this right now. So I'm actually going to start with apps like Ipsy and Poshmark, right? These are services and apps that really focus on the female audience. If we think about whether they could utilize an OEM and carrier channel in the past, they couldn't because it didn't allow them to target only female audience, right? Through the platform, through the out-of-the-box experience, we can actually ensure that we recommend Ipsy and Poshmarks to users who identify themselves as females and also focus on certain age groups that are more valuable for them. Apps like TikTok and Reddit who focus, on a younger demographic audience, they actually see lower retention performance from, older demographics. And thanks to our targeting capabilities, we can actually exclude these demographics from the campaign, from the serving. On top of it, we obviously have advertisers like Groupon and Pinterest that, they can basically enjoy the traffic of both, females and males, but at the same time, they all have different returns, different values for them. So they want to bid differently on the different user segments, different users, right? So they might have campaigns with one bid for females and a different bid for males. And same for, you can slice the, the bidding and the targeting in many different ways as we shared previously. But there is definitely more room today for partners who never tried this channel before or that similar channels failed them because lack of targeting. This is not stuff that you've tried before. Okay, let's do a short case study about a shopping app, a mobile-first shopping app, and we want to show you how they were able to scale with our solution. So this is a very popular shopping app. We purposely did not put the name of the app here, so you can ignore the image on the right side. But this is a very popular shopping app. They buy at global scale. They're definitely a heavy buyer. They're looking to acquire new users and not existing users, and they have ROAS-based goals. So what were the challenges with this developer? So obviously, they wanted to acquire engaged shoppers across multiple markets. They only want to acquire shoppers if the campaigns can back out to a day 30 ROAS goal. They don't want to obviously lose money here. And as you know, every market has different kind of shopping trends and shopping holidays that can interfere with the performance. And on top of it, they wanted to bid efficiently across multiple sources and dimensions. Again, going back to the traditional kind of OEM and carrier space, you can put the app on the phone, you can target a certain device, that's it. Thanks to the out-of-box experience solution, they were actually able to launch multiple campaigns with different targeting segmentation. So they have a group of campaigns, for one user gender with one bid, and for different age groups and with different bids. They were also able to apply dynamic bidding to each of these groups in order to maximize, the scale and the reach of each of their campaigns and their app exposure in each of these user segments. And of course, on our side, we have a dedicated account management team that was constantly optimizing the campaigns in order to ensure that we actually meet, their ROAS goals. And this is the result. So on the left side, you can see across different markets how ROAS trends up towards the 200% on days 30 and above it, which was their goal. On the right side, you can actually see the scale that they received in each of the markets on a daily basis across a 6 months period. That spike there is in the US actually. It's around June. And there are close to 8,000 installs a day that they received from the platform, which is definitely significant scale for a partner in a specific market, only from one channel on a daily basis. Cool. On our next slide, I want to show you kind of a screenshot from our dashboard, which will give you insights into how all of this kind of falls into your marketing campaigns. So you can see, everything from app installs to, spend, how it changes between the campaigns and the geos, and you can break it down by device model. You can break it down by the user age, the user gender. Obviously, you see this kind of summary screen there on the right that shows you like the top results from all of your campaigns. And I think this is also data that you typically don't get from, other channels that you're working with. So I know what you're all thinking right now, and this is amazing. And I want to start working with you guys. But before we do that, I wanted to share some best practices. So because the engagement that we have with the user is very early, right? These users are just setting up their new phone and they're being prompted, to select different apps and different services offered to them. We also need to look at things a bit differently from the measurement side of things. So to start, we would recommend to change the attribution window specifically for a channel like this with this nature to 30 days to be the minimum. And I'm going to show you some data in order to convince you to do it. Secondly, we think that the goals should focus on ROAS and cost and not on registration rate or to look at retention necessarily. The reason for it is that a lot of users, when they get an app on their new phone, they open it, they're saying, oh, that's great, I'm interested in using this, but they're actually still in the process of setting up their new device. They might come back to the app a week after. So retention would look a bit funky if you look at retention, but if you look at long-term, which actually leads us to our third bullet here. If you look at long-term value, you're actually going to see that this channel has really, really good returns. And of course, if you're budget sensitive, it's crucial to choose the right business model here. I'll elaborate a little bit about it. So, the CPI business model, as we all know it, it says cost per install. But install is actually what the attribution companies define as an install. And the attribution companies only see the user when he first launches the app. So the install for attribution companies is actually the first app open. It's not really when you click the button in the Play Store, the install button, and the app is sitting on the device on the home screen, right, waiting to be launched. One thing that we can't predict from an OEM and carrier channel is when the user is going to actually open the app for the first time. So we know they download it, right, when the device is activated and it's presented to them in the out-of-box experience. But when the user is going to launch the app for the first time, this is a question, and we have data to show you that. But because of it, it's very important that if you're budget sensitive, and an example to that would be an agency, right, that have strict budgets for a month, for example. You actually want to work on a different model that is a cost per preload or a cost per download. At the end, it should back out to the same thing from a performance kind of point. But the only thing that guarantees you to control the spend is if you pay for the preload, if you pay for the download, that happens when the user downloads the app from the out-of-box experience. If you pay for the install, you're basically paying for the first app open, and we really don't know if it's going to happen 7 days after the campaign ended, 14 days after the campaign ended, a month after the campaign ended. So you can, if you don't want to find yourself in a situation where you basically pause the campaign with a channel like this, and then you still see spend coming in, you have to work on a CPP or a CPD business model. So here is some interesting data for you guys. We thought it's important to show you, the distribution of app opens for users who open an app within the first 6 months. And it looks like this. So in the first 7 days, users that received, a download or a preload from this sort of channel, only 53% of them, of the users, that we look in a 6-month period, will actually open it within the first 7 days. Okay, so if we want to properly measure the channel, we need to extend the attribution window. By day 13, we're seeing that only 66% will actually launch, an app that is sitting on their home screen from the out-of-box experience or from a preload. By day 30, only 81%, and if we look at the first 60 days, we get to 90. It's important for us to show you this data because we really think that in order to properly measure this channel, you have to anticipate a different behavior and adjust the way you measure it so you can really see the value that comes out of it. And the last thing that I want to mention here is that it's last click attribution. And there is a reason why we say last click, because in our case, the click happens when the user downloads the app to the device. So initially on day 0, when the device was first opened. If a later channel fired the click, showed an ad and fired the click, then the attribution will go to that channel. It's not scary to extend the attribution window to 30 days here. It's just for better measurement, right? What it means is that you're only going to pay the channel if the app was launched within the attribution window. If another channel drove the engagement, you'll pay that channel. So that's okay. Here's an example of one of our partners. It's actually a leading video streaming app, and we wanted to show you how cohorts and looking differently at cohorts can actually impact what you think of a campaign. So this app had a goal of a $45 cost per new registration. And, typically channels would look at like a day 1, day 3, day 7 performance. We can see that if we look at day 7, right, and the goal is $45, this campaign is underperforming. But if we just simply let the data mature, you can actually see that the cost per registration is way, way, way better than what they wanted as the KPI. And the reason for it is because users that initially launched the app are going to come back to it and try the service, okay? And this is just the nature of the channel. This is just the nature of this touch point. We can't have a presentation without talking for a minute about fraud. And so this is going to be relatively quick because, these channels are actually fraud-free. And the reason that these channels are fraud-free, there are 2 main reasons. One is that, we have direct integrations with the OEMs and the carriers that we work with. So we can ensure that the device is real, that the user is real, and that the app actually gets to the device. The second reason is that a lot of the fraud that's happening today in the industry is coming from malicious apps that sit on the device and can inject, and spam clicks when they recognize that, a certain app is being downloaded to the phone. Because the touch point here is so early, there is no real concern that these apps will be on the device. So there is significantly lower risk, actually barely even exists, of an app there that can actually, steal attribution from you guys. That's a huge benefit of this channel. The other buzzword around the industry right now, and definitely a hot topic, is incrementality. I don't want to spend too much time talking about incrementality. We can do a whole session about incrementality and how to do it. I just wanted to say two things about it. So to start, this channel definitely supports incrementality testing. We actually encourage you to do incrementality testing on this channel to see how incremental it can be for you. And secondly, something that we already said, but again, it's important to mention it in this context, is that because the out-of-box experience will only feature apps to the users that he doesn't have on his device, the incrementality is likely to be positive and high. And again, if the user imported apps from his old device, we're just not going to feature these campaigns to him in the out-of-box experience. So our last slide for today, and kind of to quickly recap everything and the main takeaways here, we wanted to share with you that OEM and carrier channels basically became much more accessible and relevant for performance marketers. And this is basically due to new technology. The out-of-the-box experience captures users when they're most receptive to trying new apps and services. And obviously, measurement and KPIs should be adjusted in order to fit the early touch point with the user. And I highly encourage you to try this channel and the lookalikes of it. And we definitely think it brings, a lot of value for you guys. It's much more efficient when it comes to, how you spend your marketing dollars.